So this is the complex number section, and hopefully you've done the first few problems here, and we just multiply like normal. The square root of negative numbers, like square root of -7, we said was not a real number. And so at some point, they used to call them imaginary numbers, and some places still do, but there's also another name called complex numbers. So your work is going to call them complex numbers. The square root of -1 is I, and that I is the complex number here. So if square root of -1 is I, everywhere we see a square root of -1, we're going to put an I in it, or instead. Now, that also means that I squared is going to be equal to -1. So if you have something like square root of -1 times 6, instead of the square root of -1, we're going to put the I in. Now remember, that was square root of -1 times 6, so now this is now I times 6. Same with number 2. Number 3, I'm asking you to rewrite it so that you have square root of -10 into 2 radicals. Square root of -1 and square root of 10 would be the best way to do it, because square root of -1 now becomes I. So here's a generalization here. For any number n, if you have square root of -n, you can separate it into the 2 radicals, square root of -1 and square root of n. Then that square root of -1 becomes the I. So if you look at number 5, I've separated square root of -25 into square root of -1 and square root of 25. That square root of -1 becomes I. Square root of 5, or square root of 25 becomes 5. And I times 5, 5 times I, same idea. We generally write it as 5I though. So then you have square root of -6, and if we separate that into 2 radicals, then we have the I square root of 6. So a couple things here. If you have a square root and a number out in front, we're going to put the I in between. So let me see if I can demonstrate that here. So if you had something like square root of -50, that breaks down to square root of -1 and square root of 50. That's definitely the I, but if we break down 50, that's 2 times 25, and 25 is 5 times 5, so we can also pull out a 5. So we would put the 5 in front, the I after it, and then the square root of 2. Remember, leftovers go in the fridge, so square root of 2 right there. So if you have an I and a radical and a number in front, that's how it would look. Okay, go for it. Do the rest of them. And then check your answers.